ఆపాదమడిగయంతాం గురునామాకృతం స్మరింతిని విఘ్నప్రణశ్యంతి సిద్ధించిన మనోరథం లక్ష్మీంతనోతంతరామితరానపేక్షమంగ్రిద్వయం నిగమశాఖి శిఖాప్రవాలం ఐరంబం అంబురుహడంబర చౌర్య నిఘ్నం విఘ్నాద్రిభేద శతధార ధురంధరన్న సర్వేషాం స్వాగతం. This is the positive psychology session for the 19th shloka. So in the previous positive psychology session, we came across this concept of local reality. So when we are talking about Advaita, we looked at it from the Advaita perspective in Samskara section. So when we come to the positive psychology also, there is a certain relevancy of fundamental reality. Again, this is not a direct concept of positive psychology. It's a scientific concept, fundamental reality. What and how it bears an influence on the positivity. So when we're talking about fundamental reality, it refers to the underlying or the inherent nature of existence. So in science too, physics too, we are talking about not just the nature, the forces that we are understanding. It refers to those basic elements, fundamental foundational elements that led to creation. So we are talking about the basic nature. Now when we talk about the importance of this fundamental reality, it is simply that we need to acknowledge the fact that whatever is the true, this is the true self. There is no changing of it. Whatever is the true self, there may or may not be the capability for within us to understand what fundamental reality is. That becomes the avidya, practically speaking. So what happens is, if the information is expressed in terms of something that I understand, then I'll be able to interpret it. That is the sensory perceptions, in whatever way I can receive it. If it is expressed in those terms, I'll be able to understand it. If I cannot express it in those terms, then the fundamental reality cannot be understood. So this also has to be reconciled with, because there are when I say I want to be a doctor, it is just an ichha. Whether I'm capable of being a doctor, there are different steps for that, and I may not be. So in the same way, the fundamental reality when it comes to Sri Rama Gita also, or the question also, is that there was before Sri Rama Gita, Sita Devi is exiled. That is fundamental reality. Why it happened, when it happened, that is through different sources, and it has to be in certain format of information that I can understand. When I say I can understand, it can be with respect to emotional intelligence, and it can be with respect to the concepts that I have understood, my experience. If I don't have that experience, then the problem is that I will not be able to understand the fundamental reality, why it happened or why it does happen. So I'm not able to understand it. Now in that case, what can we do? We have to bring about acceptance. So I already explained, acceptance has the power to change a negative emotion to a positive emotion. That is the whole point of positive psychology. So acceptance of something as it is, even if I don't understand it, will allow me to move forward. Maybe a different perspective is required. Only when I reach a certain level, I'll be able to look back at it. But now I cannot allow it to fixate in my mind, because once it fixates, then it leads to different kind of chittavrittis. So for me, even if I don't understand what the fundamental reality of Brahman is, I have to move forward. I have to keep doing all those different elements that leads to an understanding. Just because I don't understand Satchit Ananda is, just because I don't understand what true jnana is, how can the ultimate knowledge be Brahman himself? Just because I don't understand the Advaita concept, just because I don't understand the Dvaita concept, etc., 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 I cannot stick to that same concept and fixate on it. Because once I start fixate on it, then it leads to different kind of chittavrittis. It starts, I start attaching with that emotion, and obviously I start to react with certain expectations. So here, the reason why we are bringing about fundamental reality is to show that there is learned ignorance. That means I know that I don't know something and I'm not acting upon it, but that learned ignorance of the fundamental reality is not entirely negative. I'm not capable of understanding fundamental reality, therefore I'm not uh, going towards it. But here it is not um, learned ignorance, because the prayatna, the effort to try and understand this is constant. But we are not fixating on the fact that we are not able to get it at the instant. We're not able to understand it immediately. So that part we are not fixating on. That has to be understood. So there is a slight difference in the concept, in acceptance, the fundamental reality bringing about acceptance. So why this is important is that it brings about this eudaimonic happiness. Eudaimonic happiness means when I flourish. Flourish is actually the word because this concept has been explained by Martin Seligman in a book called as Flourish. So when I flourish, what do I mean by flourish? It means to live in a certain state where I'm thriving, but I'm also being a positive influence in the environment, not causing any harm to anyone. It's a very huge concept. So it is meaningful, virtuous life. It is living a virtuous life, meaningful and a virtuous life. So there has to, in this, what is important is that there has to be purpose. I have to try to find out what is the meaning, what is my engagement, how am I engaging with life, how am I trying to fulfill the objective, the meaning of life, and what are my virtues, etc., etc. These are some of the elements that constitute that particular kind of happiness, eudaimonic happiness. So uh, there are certain key components, being swavalambhi, that is autonomy, and then there has to be competence to face the challenges. Competence doesn't necessarily mean that we have to succeed immediately. Competence meaning not giving up. So finding that effective, using resources to whatever extent possible, capable, like that. Then relatedness mainly because now I need to, I'm thinking I need to get certain things done. Now there are obligations that comes in, so which means I'm not able to fulfill this immediately, but to try and find a way to connect myself to my main objective, even through whatever is the obligations. That means I have certain obligations, I also have that passion, etc., etc., what people usually say. So there is a passion. I want to learn how to sing, or how to play an instrument, etc., etc., want to be a professional singer, etc. Everything is fine. Now if I feel that that is the meaning of life and I have to pursue it, pursuance of that particular this thing cannot be absolute. That means it cannot be that I'm only going to focus on that, because life has certain obligations that is going to be interfering. But to find a positive transformation, what I should adopt to is that even while fulfilling the obligations that life requires me to, I have to focus on my objective. That means even a true artist, they say a tortured artist usually finds inspiration in the torture only. That means life's obligation is getting to him. It is actually diverting that person from his main objective of creating art. but he's finding inspiration in the life, whatever obligations he's meeting, and then creating art out of it. So that way, it's important for us to find the relativity between what necessary things that we have to do and what we plan to do. That is the passion that we have in mind. So that brings about that eudaimonic happiness. And for this, obviously, we need to understand what is personal growth, what our personality is, what our virtues are, etc., etc. So this concept of eudaimonic happiness is a very key concept of bringing about the fundamental reality. That means understanding fundamental reality. And the most important concept is that with respect to whatever is the the state of understanding of the fundamental reality, we must be able to accept it. Only when we accept it, we can actually understand more about it. So this is also like the Purva Paksha Vada. Only when we accept that there can be a counter argument, only then we'll be able to move forward. So it is related to the concept of resilience as well, coping with adversity. So they're also adapting to challenges. All these things are a part of this concept of fundamental reality. We'll explore a little more about fundamental reality, because through fundamental reality, we'll understand another concept of well-being. So with this, this is the positive psychology session for the 19th verse. स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः प्रतिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण मही महिषा गोब्राह्मणेभ्यो शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि।